Hello, everyone. Welcome to our latest Facebook Live. I am Dr. Susan Ratliff. I am a pediatrician here at Pediatric Partners. And I just wanted to talk a few minutes about screen time. You know, Screen time encompasses a huge variety of things. And so I'm just going to touch on a little part of it. There's obviously going to be some things that we can't cover today, but maybe that will be a topic for a future Facebook Live. So if you have any suggestions, I'd be happy to hear them. But screen time is a really important topic, I think, because our kids are currently exposed to so many screens that we weren't even an option 10 years ago. So social media has added a whole nother dimension to this, and that's occupying lots of people's time. And then if you add COVID and all the changes that have happened to schools, and to our lives, and to work, add that into the mix, and it's forced all of us to be on our devices more than ever. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about screens in different age groups and maybe give you some tips on how you can navigate that with your family. Um, so first, I just want to break it into age groups because it is very different. Screen time with a baby is very different than screen time with your teenager, of course. And so I don't want to leave those parents of the little ones out. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So when we're talking about the really young ones, like ages 2 and under, there are a ton of TV shows that are geared to the little ones. If you think, Sesame Street has been around forever, and it's really geared towards toddler learning. But the little ones, like under 15 months, they're not really able to take the information from a TV show and translate it to use in their own world. So, it's great to see these educational shows teaching them their shapes and letters and colors and things like that. But when they're really young, they're not able to translate that into usable information, so to speak. There is some information that toddlers as young as 15 months can learn from, like interactive apps, which is something obviously that I think we're all sort of navigating a little bit more. But those studies are are really based on specific apps that are not really available commercially. And there's not really a great deal of information or evidence to benefits of screen time in these age groups. The little ones really need parent or caregiver involvement to help them understand what they're seeing on the app or on the TV. And that is true whether it is grandma on Zoom or Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. So if you're going to give the really little ones screen time, do it together. Use screens sparingly. And if you do use it, help your child sort of translate what they're seeing on their screen into real life. Now, preschool is a different age group. So some TV programs, again, think Sesame Street, have been shown to improve cognitive and social outcomes. And that's great. I mean, lots of us grew up watching Sesame Street and similar shows. Apps potentially could also improve learning in this age group. However, remember that apps that are listed as educational do not necessarily meet the same criteria for grade standards or things that they would exact things that they would be learning in preschool. Um, Digital books are a great option. However, it's easy when you're reading those digital books to not interact with your child the same way you would if you had a book. One of the great things about reading to kids is that when you read that book, you can say to them, here's a story about the dog. Where's the dog on this page? Or how's the dog feeling? And getting your child really interacting instead of just reading them a book. And when you look at those digital books, because often they have things that the kid can touch and little videos and things that are connected to it, it's easy to let the app take over, and as a parent, not do as much of the educational piece that we do whenever we are naturally reading a traditional book. So as long as you're thinking about those things, I think the digital books are a great option. Um, However, most things that preschoolers need to learn are things that you can't really teach from a device, right? Those are things like task persistence. They have to stick with something over and over so that they master it. Or impulse control. That is very hard to teach from a device. Social interaction, even though they may be interacting with grandma or even a friend through iChat or something like that, FaceTime. It's really hard to recreate that true social interaction that happens when you're in person. Um, so kids at this age really need good old fashioned play. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about this more with the older kids, but with an increase in screen time, we've also seen an increase in obesity. So there is one study in this age group that showed that BMI increased for every hour of screen time per week. So that's really significant. An hour of screen time spaced out throughout the entire week is really not a lot per day. So the bottom line in this age group is screens can be okay for them, and it's a good thing for them to sort of get used to because, as we'll talk about with the older kids, it's going to be in their life. But try to limit that to no more than an hour a day, and it's really best that that screen time takes place with a parent or caregiver, that you guys can use it together and use it as a tool in their learning. So for school age and adolescents, I think that there is just a ton of information about kids and devices, and it is also a little bit different from your kindergarten compared to your high schooler, of course, and I acknowledge that, but I am sort of lumping them together, and so bear with me on that. But traditionally, school age kids, have really mostly used TV still. There are some younger kids that have phones, but still mostly their source of screens is from TV. But as more and more kids are getting access to tablets and computers, that is changing a little bit. But they also have more on-demand options of things, even with their TVs. So people and kids have Netflix and Hulu and Disney Plus, things like that, that really are sort of in some ways geared toward the kids. But they can get those same things through apps on their tablets and things like that. As far as adolescents are concerned, obviously the big difference between the younger kids and the older kids is that more of them have phones and more of them have social media accounts. Social media is a common way for teenagers to really connect. And about 75% of teenagers have at least one social media account, and more than 70% of teenagers use multiple platforms. So it is something that as parents, our kids are going to be faced with, and it's very reasonable to make sure that you're sort of monitoring that. And we'll talk a little bit about that. I'm not going to talk a ton about social media, but we'll talk about monitoring things. Again, with the older kids, obesity does increase, screen time does increase their risk of obesity. So their risk of being overweight was 5 times increased in teens who watch more than 5 hours of screens a day. So that would include their tablets, their TVs, their phones, all that. And teenagers have more sleep issues when screens are used within 2 hours of bedtime. They have worse school performance when screens are used around bedtime. So just another reminder of how important sleep is to kids as well. And if our screens or devices are interfering with sleep, then that is going to affect your kids. Research has suggested that there is a U-shaped relationship between internet use and depression, with an increased risk of depression both at the high end and the low end of internet use. So keep that in mind. There very well may be a healthy place to do that, but on either end, it can really set up your child for depression. Um, and then keep in mind things like cyberbullying, video game violence, sexting, online influences. All of those things are important to take into consideration when we're talking about our older kids and school age kids for that matter that are on their devices. So, what are we to do as parents? I think that the big thing is that we still need to parent when our kids are on devices. So, set limits and stick to them. Apps or devices are an easy way to do that, and it can sort of make you a little bit hands off as far as some of the restrictions. So it's not you don't have to feel like you're looking over their shoulder quite as much, but you still have limits on their phone. So there are things like you can buy a device called Circle that's actually made by Disney, and that's designed to help you monitor your child's media use. The newest iPad operating system has a ton of different ways that you can monitor your child's screen time. We just recently upgraded to that for my daughter, and it is really amazing all the limits that you can set. You can set times. You can set times on certain apps. She can actually ask for more time on specific apps. So let's say, for example, she wanted more time on a reading app, but not more time on one of her game apps, and you can really drill down specifically to that. So that's been something that's been really great for our family, I think. Um, the Nintendo Switch has a parental control app that sets limits for your child. So not only does it set limits as to what sort of content they're seeing, but it also sets time limits, which I think is a really great thing to be utilizing. Um, I understand that Xbox One and PlayStation 4 also have the ability to set some limits on them. So um, that's something if your child uses one of those things, it might be worth looking into. Be a role model. Heavy parent use of mobile devices is associated with fewer verbal and nonverbal interactions between parents and children, which are so important for all of our age groups. They need to have interaction with you as a parent, and they need to be able to have you sort of role model that behavior for them. More parent use of mobile devices is also associated with more parent-child conflict. So we really want to be building those relationships with our kids, and that's very difficult to do when each person in the family is on their own device. Know who your children are with online, what apps they're watching, what shows they're watching, and what they're texting about. You know, their interests are also a way to sort of build your relationship with them. So get involved. Those things are definitely part of their life, and know what they're doing. But it also gives you the ability to sort of talk through what is responsible use at their age. Keep bedrooms, meal times, and play times screen free for children and parents. So set those phones away, have your kids do the same, and really work on developing that time with your kids. Try to find a media free zone of your home. So whether that's the kitchen, all the bedrooms should be screen free, but find a place that you guys can go and just be a family and not have to worry about the media. I think that would be really great. Um, it is really important that there are no screens 1 to 2 hours before bedtime, and remove the devices from the bedrooms before they go to bed. So all of those things will help with sleep problems and some of those things that we talked about earlier. Now, with all that said, this is a little bit different in the time of COVID. I know that you guys are all experiencing this just like we are with our family, and we're sort of navigating it. our kids, especially if they're virtually learning, they are on screens much, much more than they ever have before. But also there was definitely a time, and some of our families still are in this situation. But when we're home and we're quarantining and we're uh, trying to be as socially responsible as we can as far as COVID, um, the the devices really are kids' one way to socially interact with both family and friends. So I think that we all have to give each other a little bit of grace and understand that there is going to be some more screen time, more now than ever. Um, but with that being said, it's probably even more important that we try to limit or decrease the screen time in other parts of the day. Let's get our kids out and being active and playing in the things that are really good to help their minds when they're after they've sat all day on their devices. Um, Social connections, I think we all are getting more and more comfortable with device-based social connections. We've in my family we've had Zoom parties, we've had Zoom play dates, I've had Zoom happy hours. I mean, we do whatever we can to try and keep that connection going, and I think that that's really important. And that's I think unfortunately going to continue for the foreseeable future. So think about things like cooking play dates, or cooking time with grandma, that you guys make something in your house while grandma makes something in hers. Games with friends, video games can have some social interaction. So keep in mind creative ways to use your device to your advantage while you're still sort of monitoring that. I hope that's helpful. I also wanted to direct you to the healthychildren.org. They actually have a page that helps you develop your own family's media use plan. So I think that would be really helpful for a lot of families. So you might want to take a look at that. I can put a link to that in the comments if anybody is interested. And I will go ahead and end it there. I hope you all have a great day. See you soon.